You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. You've heard the saying, freedom isn't free, and I completely agree. We could take a run at that statement from many different angles and talk about what freedom is and the cost of it. Since becoming a military mom, I've learned a new perspective about sacrifice and laying down one's life. Being a military mom has also made me think about God sending his son to serve and save others. Wow, so many levels of things that I just didn't expect those lessons to come with that change of life. But the Lord does use our very circumstances and the practical things of life to teach us more about himself. Well, recently I was privileged to be a contributor to a book called Life in the Estrogen-Free Zone. It is a boy mom book with just a collection of a bunch of great stories by boy moms to encourage your heart. And I'm going to put a link for that in the show notes. But in preparing for that book launch, we had a group of authors in our own little chat group, and I was introduced to Valerie. She's a military wife and a mother of two precious boys. So, Valerie, thank you for joining me. I thank you for your family's service to our country, and I'm excited to get to know a little bit more about you today and about the ministry, your life as a military wife, and all the things that you do.
Thank you so much, Pam. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you as well.
So I don't know how far we want to go back. Like, were you ever planning on being a military wife? Was your husband already in the service when you got married?
Oh, no. My husband and I, we are high school sweethearts. His dad was my youth pastor growing up. And so I've known him since fifth grade. And he was not headed towards the military when I started dating him. And so that was really just a whole whirlwind. We got married right after he started military training, and we jumped into that military lifestyle head first, knowing nothing about it. I was finishing my last year of college when we first got married, and 2 months after we got married, he deployed for the first time, and it was a 15-month deployment.
Oh my goodness.
With a 2-week R&R in the middle. And this is before you have FaceTime on your phone or anything like that. So we were, at that point, we were using Skype, but we never knew when we could chat with one another. So I would have to wait. Like, basically, anytime I had free time, I had my computer open waiting for a call that would quite often never come. And so it was hard. It'd feed bitterness. It was a really tough season for our marriage. But through that, God is so gracious and good, and we've grown in our marriage, and there's been a lot of just building trust and building, learning how to forgive and learning how to cling to each other even in those tough seasons. Yes, we were thrown in head first.
Yeah. And how do you cling to one another when you are countries apart? So yeah, that's a different perspective. Sometimes we have trouble connecting when we're in the same house.
Yes. And we were so young, we didn't know how to communicate. And so that was a huge hurdle for us at the very beginning, just right out of the gate, because we didn't know how to communicate. And then we were also thousands of miles away from each other. We had to learn the hard way, unfortunately. And again, God is just so good and bringing us back together and really just being able to say, like, okay, this is not okay. We have to have God in the center of our marriage. We have to work and put effort to make things better with each other. So yeah, we've come a long way, and it's been a journey.
How long have you been married now?
13 years.
13 years.
Yes, 13 years, two little boys, and we've moved like 5 times, I believe. So we've kind of lived all over.
One thing you made me think about was as we prepare for marriage, I mean, there is a standard that you go to premarital counseling, and there's certain things you go over. But I was thinking that is all geared towards civilian life, and military life Wow. I mean, I guess I'm just kind of dumbfounded as to you're right. That like absolutely changes the trajectory and understanding the communication nuances and the community connections and all
Mhm.
those things that we take for granted as civilians. We don't even recognize those things that you would have to walk through.
Yes, we did premarital counseling, but it was great, but it looked vastly different for us. And honestly, we just weren't prepared for it. We just didn't know what to expect, and we were young. And with that comes learning curves, and sometimes that's tricky. But I mean, we struggled, but we made it through ultimately, with a story to share. And again, like, I can only credit God for that. And that's honestly what I try to do within my ministry. And, and truth be told, that's what I try and do for the military wife specifically, is to
Mm.
say like, hey, this is hard. This looks hopeless, but it's not, because God is our hope. And if we cling to Him in the hard, tough circumstances, then you will pull through, and He will
Mm.
be by your side, and He will never leave you. So
Mm. Yes. Okay. I want to get into your ministry that you do. I don't know if we want to chat a little bit more about your personal, like what that what that looked like when he hit the ground coming back home after 15 months away. Where was your first, like, where was your, I guess I'm curious where you lived while he was gone. And then once he got back, where was your first duty station together?
okay, so we got married, and we immediately moved into an apartment in my college town in Dahlonega, Georgia. And he was only there for like a month and a half until he had to leave, or 2 months. And so I stayed there during that time, which was hard because I was surrounded by college people. And so most were not married, definitely not military. And so it brought on a whole new element of like, who are my people? I have no one to support me. And if someone is to say, oh, hey, how are you doing? It, it was almost like I had to wear a mask. And I've learned over the years that I should have just been honest. But back then, I would just say, oh, I'm fine. And
Mm.
underneath that mask, there was a lot going on, and there was a lot of hurt, and there was a lot of sadness and loneliness, and feeling like, where do I fit? So yes, I was in Georgia. And then when he got back, our first duty station after that was actually in Nashville, Tennessee, because his reserves unit, he worked full time for that reserves unit in Nashville. And so we moved there. And that was another hurdle, because at a reserves unit, there's not like a military community. You're not on a military installation. So we were just living amongst civilians. And so you're trying to plug in and do life, but in the civilian world. And so it just, it makes it a little bit tricky.
Well, the schedules are so different. And, we in civilian world, we plan our lives and our schedule, our calendar. We decide when we want to go places. And you don't have that luxury when you are in the military.
No, we do not. I mean, and there's so many missed vacations and canceled plans. I mean, that is just, if if A doesn't work, then B, and then C, and you just go down the list until something sticks. But you just have to learn to go with the flow, to be honest, because ultimately it's not up to you. And sometimes that's really hard to grasp. Just as a person, it's really hard to relinquish control, especially when it just comes to our lives. And just knowing like, okay, God, like, this is not how I wanted it to go. This is not what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be on a weekend getaway with my husband, but he is in the field, and that is frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you minister to other women, because you've been there and you understand that in a way that I could never understand.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that, through the hard, God has taught me, is like that everyone's story is so important. And, we have a different story. You have a story, and I have a story. And the people that you relate to and that you are going to be able to disciple, I may never be able to touch their lives like you. But I think that that's so beautiful how God can do that. And he creates a story for everyone. And we all should be open to sharing that story and bettering each other.
Yeah. So would you just, I mean, kind of hate to ask this, but I wonder if you would mind sharing with me one of the toughest seasons that you have had in the military life.
So for us, we got orders to go to Colorado. Colorado was always our number one pick. We, even as young adults, when we were newlyweds, we were like, we want to end up in Colorado. We want to live in Colorado. It's beautiful. And so when we got the orders, we were thrilled. And I had just had my second son, honestly, a month ago. So we PCSed when he was a newborn. We lived in a hotel for a month because they did not have a house for us. And that was hard in and of itself. But then while we were in the hotel, so probably within the first 3 weeks of being in Colorado, we got word that my husband would be going on a rotation to Europe. And so that was going to be a 9-month rotation. That was just devastating because we're both from Georgia. It was not feasible to drive from Colorado to Georgia, especially in the season of motherhood that I was in. And we knew no one. We knew no one in Colorado. We knew no one at the installation. I felt very much alone in it. And I knew that I was in a season of motherhood where I needed community and I needed people. And I didn't even know, honestly, where to start because I just felt so overwhelmed with the fact that he was going to be leaving, overwhelmed with like not having anyone to do life with. We didn't have a church yet. And it rocked my world, and to say the least. And thankfully God provided just the right people at just the right time. And if I look back on that, I can see exactly what he was doing and where he was providing. But in the moment, it just feels so daunting. And it's an overwhelming thought process.
So let me get the timeline straight. You get to your new permanent change of station, your PCS, and your house wasn't ready. So you're in a hotel for a month. It was at the hotel. You got the information that he would be going on this rotation. Did you get to move into your home and unpack with him, or did he get sent away, like straight from the hotel?
No, we were very blessed in the sense that we still had several months before he had to leave. We just got word that it was occurring. So he was able to help us move in. We were able to kind of get settled in that neighborhood. A lot of people are not like that. There are a lot of people that they get word and they go immediately. And so we were very blessed in that regard. And then we went through the rotation in Germany, and he came back and he was basically in different TDY, different schools and trainings, field trainings, things like that. So his head wasn't on our pillow in our home, even though he had just been away for 9 months. And then they needed numbers. And so they booked him for a deployment to Afghanistan to close out that time in Afghanistan. And so honestly, we were there almost 5 years. And I mean, the majority of the time I was a single parent. And so it was very, very challenging. It affected everything from our boys' behaviors, just navigating like how to say goodbye well, what does that look like, how to coast on empty when I have nothing else to give, how to rely on the Lord's strength and not my own, how to ask for help. That was a huge one. And also how to accept help, because sometimes we can ask it, but then we're not very receptive to receiving the help when it's offered because we think that we can do everything on our own. So there were a lot of life lessons that I learned during that time, and it was hard, and I don't want to relive that particular season, but it was also very beautiful.
Well, I have to imagine that was absolutely devastating. And, when I go to a store or a restaurant and I see somebody wearing camouflage, it is, and they have their like name badge on and all that. It's very obvious that they are serving our country. You serve as well. And yet there's not an advertisement. We don't know. We may not recognize that you are with your husband absent. And I know because my son is in the army, and he's like, yeah, we aren't putting like bumper stickers on the back of my wife's car that say Army wife, because we don't want people to follow her home wondering if he's away. So there's also some safety issues with your husband being gone, and your situation and your lifestyle is very different. How can you be vulnerable but not put yourself in a vulnerable position? And so what does that look like, and how does one navigate that? What did you do? I need to know.
Well, I think the first thing that I do is try and find a church. And it doesn't matter where we move, church is a priority. And I know that there's a lot of military families that don't do that. And if we're being truthful, the military world it's very dark. And so I try and find my community within my church body. And then I go from there, whether that's neighborhoods or, meeting people at the parks or, scheduling play dates. But that first season of being in Colorado, I relied heavily on the ladies within the church. We have a Bible study group called Protestant Women of the Chapel, and I got very involved in that and just honestly tried to be readily available, because I knew if I was going through this, that there were other ladies, even within my own community, that were going through it and then some. And I knew I wanted to be there for them. And so it's kind of putting your own stuff aside and saying, okay, God, like, I know you have me here for a reason, and I'm going to try and serve you, even though this is really hard right now. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. Well, I remember way back when all my children were little, and we had this Women of Worth group. It was a lot of young moms investing in and doing this mom support group for other young moms. We would have some older women that would come in and help out, but such a different perspective and energy level and ability to take care of certain things by the moms that were in the midst of the mothering, young toddlerhood, motherhood, and what we could put in, and those that were outside beyond that stage of life and what they could invest. And so I can see a correlation with that and military life, in that you were a military wife ministering to other military women, but there also has to be some community support, like people that are not in that stage themselves, that are not in that position, because their perspective, their skills, and stress levels are different, right? They can see things from a different perspective to support you. And so how did they support you? I know a lot of our listeners, there may be a few military families, but there's probably a lot of us who are not. And I think we need to know, how can we support somebody like you if they live in our community, or maybe they're a little further down the road?
I think one of the most helpful things is especially knowing that, like, military families, they move all the time. They move far away from family and friends, and they're very much alone in it all. And especially thinking of the wife and the kids, because even if the service member, whether it be male or female, they're usually busy. So it's usually the spouse and the kids that are there, left to kind of like build this. The only way I know how to describe it is like a puzzle. You're creating a puzzle of your life, and then the service member can fit into that puzzle whenever they are available. But a lot of times they're not available. And so I think that the most helpful thing is, like, community members or church members that are civilian, to just really wrap their arms around that military family, whether that be offering babysitting, or whether that be dropping a meal by and just being like, hey, I saw that your husband was not here on Sunday, and I was just thinking about you, or even a card, like just something that shows that you're not alone and that you are loved, and that they see you. And they may not understand everything about your life, but they see you and they're willing to be a listening ear and be there for you. That speaks volumes. And it means so much, especially from a wife's perspective, when you feel like you are just paddling and paddling against the current and you can't catch up.
You need respite, and that gives you a little breath of respite, maybe.
It does. It does. And then just seeing those people, whether it be at church. I know for us in Colorado, our pastor, he was so kind. He knew what was going on in our family. He knew that my husband was gone all the time, and he knew that I was in the thick of it when it came to being a mom and struggling and tired. And it never failed. Every Sunday, he made a beeline for my boys the moment that they walked in the door. And he would give them a high five and greeted them by name and gave them a hugs and asked how their week was doing. And even just seeing that and just seeing the care that he displayed for them, they needed that positive reinforcement from a male figure in their life because their dad was not physically there to do that. And so that was huge. I also had a friend who was also a military wife. She really rallied around me during that time. And she basically her and her husband would come over and he would bring his bike and he would bike ride with my boys down the street because there's such a sweet thing about having that male figure in boys' lives in particular. They just need that male presence. So it was very special, but it could be as simple as a bike ride. It could be as simple as a card, but ultimately I think community and civilian members just need to know that there is a place for them to help. And if you are near a military family or if you are in the same community or church body as a military family, know that there is a way that you can help love on them and really point them to the Lord. And in doing that, you end up being the hands and feet of Jesus.
Mm. Is there any sort of directory or way somebody could find out, because if you live near a military installation, that might be obvious, but obviously there are military people living in non-military installations and even in recruiting offices and things like that. They're peppered around the country and we might not really know. So how could we adopt? It sounds like a perfect opportunity for a family or a retired couple to adopt a family and just invest in them.
Absolutely. And I'm not tracking the directory. That would be so nice. But man, if you are in your church and you see that there is a military family within your church body, 9 times out of 10, that military family already feels a little bit like they don't fit in because they know that they're not going to be there for a long period of time. And that ends up being really tough because, they want to invest in their church, but they know that it's only a matter of time before they leave. And so I think a lot of times, people are scared of the goodbye. They're scared to invest because they know ultimately that this person's not going to be in their life a few years down the road. Right. And so, I would just encourage them to break past that. If they see a military family within their community, just be bold. And more than likely, they will be receptive to the fact that someone is really just seeing them for who they are and that they would love the support. That really comes down to is the support. It means the world.
Love them while you have them.
Absolutely.
So if there is no directory to find support, to go find a military family to support, and we know that the women, all families need support, military or not, for real. But this one is especially important. That how do you connect? How do you find, as you travel from place to place, it takes a little while to lay down your roots. Have you been able to uncover any resources that have helped make that landing a little lighter and have been a source of fulfillment for you?
Yes, honestly, one of the biggest things that God did during that hard season in Colorado, it was during my husband's 3rd deployment, and I was just bitter and worn out. I was just tired, and I knew that we had a long road ahead of us. And my friend, she was also going through the same deployment, she messaged me about a ministry called Homefront Heroes Ministries. And she was like, Valerie, this is for us. You need to follow this Facebook account. And so I got on Facebook, and all of a sudden it was as if I was just getting post after post that they were, writing, and it was as if it was written for me. Everything that I was going through, it was for me, and I knew it was for me. And I mean, there were so many times where I would read that and I would just burst into tears because it was exactly how I felt, and I hadn't put it into words until that point. Fast forward a few months down the road, they actually asked for help. They wanted help on their content team, and I love writing. That's something that I'm passionate about. I just, as being a young mom, I'd put that to the side for a little while. And so I prayed about it and I ended up applying. And it was just this beautiful opportunity where God really allows me to use what I've been through to encourage the military wife community. And so that can be through prayers, that can be through just little mini micro devotionals. But it's been so encouraging, not only to be on the team, but just to see it and to know that what we're writing is ministering to the heart of the military wife. We are there to encourage and equip her during all seasons of the military lifestyle.
Well, I'm not a military wife, but I am following that page because it is encouraging. And I like to share some things from time to time that I see at places like that, because even though it is not directed to me, I know that I'm friends with somebody who's going to see it. And hopefully that'll be the connection that they need then. And then they can start following that. So I do hope that you guys go follow Homefront Heroes Ministries.
Yes, and we're on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a podcast called Hope on the Homefront. It's just an incredible way to reach our girls. And ultimately, we are trying to reach the military wife that's not connected, that does not have a church home. She does not go to PWC or have these communities. And so she's going through all of this hard stuff, but feeling very hopeless and lost in it all. And that is our main goal, is to find her and connect with her and just really point her to the Lord and showing her that our hope is found in Him. And it doesn't mean, that our stuff isn't hard, but overall our hope is found in Him. And that is where our joy comes from.
I love it. I love supporting ministries like that because it's just important to do. So good. I love what you're doing over there. And tell me more about the personal writing you do, because you have your own webpage as well.
I do. Honestly, because I enjoy writing, it kind of flows out of me in different avenues. So back in 2019, I actually self-published a kid's book, and it was a Christmas book. And that just kind of like opened the door into the writing world for me. And it was just, that's what actually gave me the confidence to apply for Homefront Heroes Ministries. It's just been beautiful to see even that part of my life grow, and God just fostering the love for writing and sharing my story. And so since then, I've been actively trying to add prayers to my blog. I've been actively trying to work on a book for military wives pertaining community and friendship, and just to encourage her in that, because it is a very lonely life. And then I have also written a few manuscripts for children books pertaining to goodbyes and dealing with that. And so I'm trying to break into the publishing world in that regard. And so that's just kind of a waiting game, but there is a lot of good stuff that God has really been just doing, and it's exciting to just be a part of and just play a small role in it. And I just pray that it can be fruitful and help military families on down the road.
What a powerful, powerful ministry you have. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me on here.
It's just been my pleasure to have you here. And I think as we close out, it would be so appropriate to pray for the military families around the U.S., that are overseas, that are all the places. If we could please, women, not just let this be a one-time prayer today, throughout this week, as you think about this podcast, stop and pray for the military families. And if you are in a position to reach out to a family, go do it. Go do it. You're going to make a friendship, a connection that is going to not only bless that other family, but I have the feeling it's going to bless you too. So let's pray for the ladies today. Valerie, would you lead us?
I absolutely will. Thank you. Dear Lord, I just come before you today, humbled and blessed. God, I thank you for our country. I thank you for our service members that just lay down their lives all the time for our freedom. Thank you so much for the sacrifices that they choose to make. I pray for their families, God. I pray for their marriages. I pray that they will look to you through it all, through the chaos, through the hardships. They will look to you and they will cling closely to you, God, because you never leave them. God, I pray specifically for the military wife this morning. I pray that you will just encourage her, whether she's dealing with loneliness, whether she's dealing with jealousy or bitterness or sadness. God, you know exactly what is in her heart, and you know her better than anyone. And she is fearfully and wonderfully made. God, thank you for giving her the courage and the strength to be a military wife and to support her husband. Thank you for the service members. Thank you for just the leaders within our country. God, I pray that you will just be with the civilians who are supporting the community or the active duty members. And I pray that you will just be with them and just open the door and give them opportunities to love on the military families, God. Thank you so much for loving us and sending your son and ultimately showing us what true sacrifice means. We love you so much. Amen.
Yes, amen. Since it's Veterans Day weekend right now, I want you guys to hop over. Don't waste any time. Go support Homefront Heroes Ministries. And Valerie, this is a really good weekend to do that, right?
It is. It's our match day. And so since we are a nonprofit, anything that is donated to our ministry gets doubled. And so it's just an incredible way to tangibly support the military wife community. And again, we just hope to encourage and equip her. And so you would be, by supporting us, that is what would be happening, is you would be supporting military families.
What a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye. I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true, whatever is noble, think on these things.